everyone. Welcome to the Personal Mastery Academy's YouTube channel. My name is Michael Doyle. In this video, we're going to talk about how limiting beliefs, what role they play in the manifestation process. So to start with, let's identify what are limiting beliefs. Well, they're negative thoughts or beliefs that you hold about yourself, about others, and about the world, and they can constrain your growth and your success. And you bought into them at a very early age when you were just a baby for the most part, and you've used them as a survival strategy ever since, and you've adopted new ones along the way. And they can be both conscious or unconscious. There are some beliefs that you know that you hold and that you reaffirm on the daily basis because you believe them to be true. But the more dangerous ones are the ones that are totally unconscious, that are so old and have been buried so deep that it requires shadow work to actually bring them forward and be identified and released. These can encompass a wide range of subjects or areas such as religious beliefs, cultural beliefs, scientific beliefs, political beliefs, personal beliefs, and morals and ethics. And they can influence your behavior and your decisions and the way that you perceive and interact with the world. But as Abraham from the Teachings of Abraham says, beliefs are just a thought that you keep thinking. In other words, somebody said something, you bought into that thought, and now you repeat that thought over and over. That's all a belief is. Some of them serve us, and some of them are limiting and constrain us. And those are the ones that we want to talk about today. In addition to the fact that beliefs are just a thought that we keep thinking, we also live in the reflection of our own beliefs. So whatever it is that we believe to be true about people, about ourselves, about the world, is all reflected back to us in our reality. We're going to talk about learning how to perceive your reality and get the messages that it's trying to tell you about what you believe to be true. And then you can decide whether or not you want to keep that belief or not. What are some examples then of limiting beliefs that you might hold? I have a list here I'm going to read off, but keep in mind that this is by no means an exhaustive list. You may or may not have any of these limiting beliefs. Chances are that you do. But you could have a whole bunch that are not on this list. This is just for demonstration purposes. I don't deserve success. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm too old or too young. I'll never be successful. Money is evil. Or another version of that is, money is the root of all evil. I can't change. You have to work hard to succeed or to make money. I don't have the right qualifications or education. I talked a little bit earlier about some of your beliefs will be conscious and some of them will be unconscious. And when I refer to the unconscious, for me, it's about my inner child. And so I'm going to share with you an example of a limiting belief that my inner child held that took shadow work for me to bring it to the surface. And one of the reasons why they're buried so deeply and it requires that kind of work to bring them forward is because they don't make sense to the adult. They're created and bought into by a child, and from an adult's point of view, it doesn't make sense. And you'll see what I mean in a second. So I had a single mother, and one of the ways that she used to manipulate me is through fear. And what I mean by that is this. She used to tell me all the time that when I was out playing with friends and whatnot, if I didn't come back home by 9 p.m., then there were bad men out there who picked up children and would take them up into the mountains. We lived in a hilly area, would take them up into the mountains and chop them up. Or she would tell me, if you're not back in time, bats come out as soon as it gets dark and they attack you. So she would continuously tell me stories like that. And of course, they would make me afraid. Now, to an adult, that sounds silly and ridiculous, but to a child, it It makes sense. It makes sense because your primary caregiver is the one who told you. So of course you're going to believe them. Through a series of events that lasted over a 6-month period, I found myself experiencing tremendous fear. And it had to do with authority figures. And not just a figure, but authoritative bodies, like the regulator in my other business, and another regulator in another business, and the hoops that they put me through, and the threats of fines and whatnot. Now, in the end, I came out clean in both circumstances, but those situations were created so that I could bring up this tremendous amount of fear over a whole 6-month period, so that I could finally look at it and say, what the heck is going on? And finally, I realized that I held a deep-seated belief that said, there are big bad monsters out there that want to get me. And so when I finally realized that I was holding that belief, and realized how it had been holding me back all these years, it was, as Abraham talks about, when you put a cork underwater and you hold it underwater and then all of a sudden you release it, poof, goes to the top. That's what I experienced in my life. All of a sudden everything changed. My perspective changed. I felt far more empowered, significantly less fear in my life, almost nil. So that's the importance of identifying and addressing these limiting beliefs. And of course, the ones that we are talking about in this video are the ones that stand in the way of your manifesting what it is that you want. How do we go about identifying them then? Well, first of all, I encourage you to use a journal, to write in a journal. I can't tell you how beneficial it is to put it down on paper, because it takes it from inside of you and puts it down there. And you may start out not knowing what you're going to write and what you're thinking, but as you start to write, things get clearer. And then ask yourself the following questions. What do I believe to be true about money, about work, about women or men, about the world, and about myself? Then another exercise that you can do, and I, in fact, just did this one yesterday. After writing all this and reminding myself, I did this one with myself. And that is, write a short description of the circumstances in one of the areas of your life, in any one of these areas. So pick a circumstance, whether it be financial, career, mental, emotional, physical, whatever the case may be. Write out your current circumstances, especially ones that are challenging to you at this time. And then ask yourself, what would I have to believe is true for this to show up in my reality? Remember, we talked about how the world is a reflection of what you believe to be true. Let's say the circumstance that you picked to write about is in the financial area. Maybe you're a little short on money right now, you've got rent due, you don't know where the money's going to come from, or even a bigger problem than that financially. When you ask yourself, what would I have to believe to be true in order for this to be a reflection of a limiting belief that I'm carrying, or several limiting beliefs? You might discover, for example, that you have a belief that you just don't have the right qualifications. Otherwise, you'd be able to get a job, and that you haven't even tried because you don't feel that you have the right qualifications, or that the economy is really tough right now. So that has prevented you from either taking certain risks or even going out and looking for a job because you think, well, nobody's hiring. So that's a limiting belief. It could be about money itself, that or that you don't deserve money, that you don't deserve to succeed. Some people would go as far as, if their financial circumstances are tight and their parents were always tight financially and their siblings are tight financially, they may have a limiting belief that says, I can't succeed beyond what my parents or my siblings have, because if I do, then they're going to reject me, or I'm going to feel guilty, so I better not do anything. That's the kind of stuff that can come up when you start to look at what your limiting beliefs may be. Maybe it's in a physical area. Let's say that you continuously have pains, and you ask yourself the question, what would I have to believe to be true for this to be in my reality? In other words, what do I believe is true about bodies or about my body in particular? Even when it comes to the physical, if that's a reflection of what you believe to be true, then there's something in there that you're probably not aware of. In fact, if pain is involved, you're certainly not aware of what limiting belief is causing it, because one of the beliefs you may have is it's perfectly natural. Everybody has pain, so what are you talking about? But when you work with a journal and you ask yourself this question and you explore it, you may remember all of a sudden, now wait a minute, my mother had this pain too. And I remember her telling me about her mother that used to have this pain all the time, or these pains, or it was like that. So your belief may be pain is hereditary, which of course is not true at all. So that's why you want to take a look at these and ask yourself those questions, because this is the kind of stuff that comes up with. Now, once you've identified that, you've got something to work with, and now we'll talk about how to overcome these limiting beliefs. Let's turn our attention to how you go about releasing these limiting beliefs. Well, one interesting thing when you're trying to release them is that just the very fact that you've identified them and maybe you've written about them a little bit in a journal is enough sometimes to eliminate them, because you realize that is so ridiculous. Why do I believe that? And then it's gone, literally. It may come up again, but you'll recognize it right away and go, well, that's not true, and then you'll move on. However, there are some things that you can do. So start out by asking yourself these questions. Again, working with your journal is the best way to do that. So ask yourself, and do it, for each belief that you've identified. Is this belief true? In other words, is it based on facts or assumptions? If it's true, then you've got a different matter. But if it's based on assumptions or based on what somebody told you, an adult told you, but you realize it's just not true, then that will help you to release it. Is it a belief that you want to keep, or is it outdated? And here's the most important question of all. It's really interesting when you work with this particular question. What payoffs do you get by maintaining this belief? You wouldn't maintain it if there wasn't a payoff. But you might have to dig a little bit to find that out, but that's the truth of it. And then you got to look at the payoff and say, well, what do I want more? Do I want this payoff, or do I want to be free of this belief? Another strategy that you can use is replace the limiting beliefs with a positive affirmation that you work with on a continuous basis, either by repeating it to yourself in the mirror or writing it down in your journals many times, or just repeating it to yourself throughout the day. As an example, if you believe that I'm not good enough, then you could have an affirmation that consists of 3 sentences actually, or any one of them alone, and that is, I am more than good enough. I am more than adequate. I am all that I need to be. Personally, I repeat those every morning while looking into the mirror. And if you have one that says I'm too old or I'm too young, a positive affirmation could be, age has no barrier in whether or not I succeed or achieve my desires. You could continue by saying, there are people of all ages who have achieved what it is that I desire. What happens is, as you repeat them, the old one will come up, because you've touched a nerve, you've hit a button, and so it'll be, every time it comes up, you'll be able to release it that much quicker and reaffirm the new belief that you want to have installed. Here's a powerful exercise that I learned from Tony Robbins from his tapes decades ago, and that is this. Write out 10 reasons why you have to let go of this limiting belief. And the second one is, Write out 10 ways in which this belief is hurting you. If that doesn't give you some motivation to let it go, write out 10 reasons why you want to adopt the new belief, whatever you've discovered in a previous step, with positive affirmations. And that's it. So let's summarize then. Overcoming limiting beliefs involves a process of increasing self-awareness, challenging negative thoughts, and then replacing them with positive, empowering beliefs. The process takes time and effort, but it's well worth it because you'll come out of it with a new mindset and increased overall well-being, which is what happened to me, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. Remember that limiting beliefs are not facts, and you have the power to reshape your perspectives for a more positive and fulfilling life. And be kind to yourself. Understand that everyone has limiting beliefs, and it's just a part of the human experience. And last but not least, treat yourself well. Have compassion for yourself, just as you would if you were dealing with a child or with a friend. And give yourself lots of encouragement. If you would like some assistance in working with and identifying and releasing your limiting beliefs, I'm available for consultation. I'll put my contact information in the description box below. And if this is the kind of content that you enjoy, please give our video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. Both would help us out a lot. Thanks very much for tuning in. Bye for now.